be a positive. It just must be an opinion, right? So that is the funny and the tricky and the Jewish part about the law, that you just need the paper that you've been there, but it's really the director of the school who has to decide if opinion is enough or if it has to be a positive opinion. So it's a huge power in the hands of the director of the school, because he's the money keeper. He's also, or she's the person who will have to distribute the money. So this is what you must...
Can you comment this picture in the previous slide? This one, yeah. What is in it?
This one, it is the test for clever children that you should spot the difference. It's one of the, from the bureau of the school, this is the kind of test that they give to the children when they are doing the tests of what is the difference and can you explain the difference and why is, for example...
It is meant to be the animal, yeah?
Yeah, it's a cat.
Cat, okay.
Right. The history of legality of the school system, homeschool system in the Czech Republic, it is kind of a strange mixture, as I said. The first possibility, since 2005, it is possible to educate children at home from the age of 6 until the age of 11. At that time, 2005, there was not compulsory preschool year. So kindergarten was not yet compulsory at that time, right, when it was passed. And when we were discussing and analyzing the parliament discussions, you could really see the after-communist collapse government mood. That since the communist government collapsed in Czech Republic 1989, so 1990 onwards, there was a huge discussion how the state restricted the function of the family, that there was no religion allowed, everybody who was religious was persecuted. If you were to be religious, you could not teach at schools, you would have to give up teaching. So in the early 90s, there was a huge outcry of all the groups which were suppressed by the communists to come up again and to use their rights, to religious rights, ethnic rights, whatever that was depressed during the time. So there was a small group in 1990 already by religious parents who said, well, we want our children to learn religion and we cannot do it at schools because the schools don't provide for this, so we do it at home. And there was a small group, perhaps 20, 25 people, starting in the early 90s, who were educating their children at home and pressurizing the parliament to actually establish something, as they call it, the trial system for home education. And it was running from 1991 to 2004, so for many years, monitoring these children every year by the Ministry of Education to see if it is good or not, how it affects the children. And out of this trial system, the law was passed for this first grade, for the first level, age 6 to 11, that it actually allowed for the parents to teach their children at home. The funny thing was that the discussions, when you look at the discussions of the parliament, was about freedom, that it is the right of the family to decide what the child is going to learn and how the child is going to learn. So you can really recognize this open mood of post-communist collapse government, where we want to go back to democracy and allow people to govern themselves, not to be governed by the state, right? And it was passed very quickly. The law was proposed and it was passed through the first reading, so very quickly. And it was open and anybody, and only you needed only the high school exam, not university degree, but high school exam to teach your child at home. It is very funny because in Czech it is generally believed that whatever you need for life, you learn from the age 6 to 11. The rest is special profession. But to get by at school, all the Czech grammar is covered until the age of 11. All the major maths functions are covered until the age of 11. All the general information about nature and about physics is covered by the age of 11. Then you get deeper and more special. Then you get chemistry, and you get special physics, special maths, special Czech literature. But really the basics that you need and you use most part of your lives, you learn by the age of 11. Strange thing, because that was passed like this, very quickly, and you didn't need any special profession. Well, It lasted 11 years for the second group to come through. So only 2016, and it was the third time that the law was passed. 3 times it was read. It had a hearing and reading in the parliament. And you can see that 11 years onwards, the discussion was very different, and the mood in the society was very different. Then the discussion was really discussing the possibility of, if you are a normal mother, can you really teach 16-year-old chemistry? Can you teach them physics? Can you teach them, we have to have 2 foreign languages, so English and French? Does every mother speak English and French, or English and German, to such a level that you could actually teach the child at the age of 16? So there was definitely a discussion about the professionalism of the parents, or of the mothers, position of the teachers. Well, if we allow every mother to teach, that why do we need to study to become a teacher? If you can do it as an engineer, why would we need special schools for teachers? So that was also another argument that was going on. And then the last one, well, if the parents teach whatever they want, we will have an anarchist society. So this idea of control. Then you can really see this very heavy upon left and right wing, which of course the right wing was more open. The left wing, traditional communists and Catholic parties, they were much more traditional, and they were sort of pushing back towards the communist regimes of control and centralized education. So that was quite an interesting thing to follow. And then, as I said already, 2017, the law was passed in the kindergarten, and then it has a special regime. It's under a different law. The primary school is under the law system, and the kindergarten is under the social work and social care law system. So it is a different level, and it also a different wording. It's very short when it comes to kindergarten, and as I said, it's because the kindergarten director is the one who checks the child once in the whole year, and if he or she is not satisfied, they can stop it immediately, and then you have no possibility to enroll for homeschooling for when you go to basic school. So you have to be very careful about this if you do it in the kindergarten and do it properly. So what is the main concern of the public with homeschooling? Basically these 3 things. Homeschool children will not know how to come, how to behave, and how to come into an institution. So they will not be able to go to secondary schools or to gymnasiums or to universities or to in any kind of job, right? Because that is connected to the second one. They are not able to respect authority. They can do anything at home. So they are running wild. They don't listen to anybody. They are lying on the floor. They don't respect timetables. And they are just misbehaved. So they will not be able to fit into the society, to be part of institutions. And the third one, that is the one you very often hear from your grandmothers, they will miss the peer group. They will definitely be so lonely at home, right? So they will not be able to mingle among children. They will not know how to become part of the group. They will not be team workers. They will be solo riders, and they will definitely miss friends. So that is one thing that the public debate, as well as the political debate, was the most often basically bringing out. Question?
Is there a public debate about bullying at schools in Czech Republic? Is it widespread or not?
Bilingual?
Bullying.
Bullying.
Yes.
Basically it is, but the research, well, I had quite a lot of reasons for homeschooling families on an older level because of bullying, that the children decided, or the parents took them out, because they were living in a small town, there was only one school, so no possibility except that school, so they decided to homeschool. I think 3 or 4 out of the 56 interviews that we were doing, 3 or 4 times this happened. But I know this is going on, but it's not really a major problem related to homeschooling. But
it's more, my question was more related, there was a public debate, where it's debated, let's say, in the Ministry of Education or whatever, because I understand that it might be like private problem, where it's lifted up on a political level.
I don't really know, but I think it's not that big issue that you would really hear it every other day in the public speech. But I have to say that it was not really my focus of attention. So I don't want to say more. I'm not an expert on this. But as a general Czech person watching the news, this is not something that has been really the hot topic for the past half a year. Right, the funny thing is that the Ministry of Schooling has, of course, has been monitoring homeschoolers for ever since this 1991 project. And every time when they ask for a report, all these points are just disproven. But it doesn't matter, because they come up and up and up and up every time the discussion is open, right? So sometimes even scientific data is not enough, because it's so deep in the mind of society that you need the peer group. That if you grow out of the school, of the class of the same year-olds, you will be missing for the rest of your life. And that idea is very, very deep. So to answer the second question, the question of power, the Czech situation at the moment is that the state really still keeps the control. You have to enroll into a school, and that school carries out examination at least once in half a year. So every half a year you have to visit the school, and the director and the teachers have to examine you, and they have to give you a statement that you can pass onto the next level, onto the next half, or the full year. If you are doing wrong or not doing well, then you have to repeat the year, just like in any other school setting. If you are low rated, then you have to do a repetition of the year. On the other hand, parents are involved to a large extent. As a parent, you can choose a school. You don't need to send a child to school which is around the corner. If you know from other homeschooling families that this school is something that you really like, you can enroll your child over there. You don't have to be stuck in a school where they have problems. I have experienced this myself. When we started, we thought, okay, the best school would be around the corner, because that way we can keep touch with the local people, and then my son can associate with the local people, can go to after-school activities there and so on. But we were the first ones in the school, and the director didn't really know how it works, right? So the first time we met, she took a biology textbook and one page after the other, she was just going like this, asking my son questions from each page, like half a year stuff in 35 minutes in front of the whole class. It was horrible. It was really learning by execution. So we changed the school and it was much better. But I was inexperienced. There was not any information that somebody could give me, so I thought logically it's nice to stay in the community, and that was my assumption. But also the experience of the directors and of the school is something that is very important, and I learned. And then of course, ever since I was doing public lectures, this is something that I stress very much, that it is the ability and openness of the school. You can be the one who pushes it forward, but you will spend so much energy persuading the director who doesn't want to open to homeschoolers that perhaps you need in some other places than just persuading a director. So, historically you can see that the discussion is very dynamic over power and control in the Czech government, and I think it's all over the Central Europe. And at the moment I would say, if you take the theory of Peter Wagner of modernity and postmodernity, that we are not out of modernity anymore. There are still a lot of people who believe in universal education, that all the children should be educated at the same level, at the same age, they should get the same thing. So really, we are not in the postmodern system, where even though very often it looks like this, that you are responsible for your education, which is typical for postmodernity. But modernity, this universality of achievement and the peer group is still very important. And as I already mentioned many times, I think the Czech law is very hybrid and is very elastic. So, third point and the last point to go through quite quickly, question of perceiving childhood and adulthood. I think out of our research, this has appeared as very important thing, and something that we do in anthropology, and I teach my students, always start from yourself. Who is a child for me? How do I perceive a child? How do I perceive